I don't believe that you should ever be able to set a dream and go out and accomplish it on the very first attempt. If you do, it wasn't a big enough dream.
It took you getting outside, let's call it our food bubble, to travel the world, to learn from some nonprofit of what you can also bring back.
It's not the destination that matters. It's the journey that matters. And how can we learn on the journey? Be a great leader. And if you want to be the best leader, the world will become you'll go out today and you'll see an example on the street of leadership. You'll see an example somewhere of compassion and of caring. So if you're looking for something to be, you'll find examples all over the place.
Welcome to Crave, the IFDA Podcast. My name is Julien LeBlanc, your host for this series of great conversations with industry and non-industry leaders. The food industry is evolving rapidly, and so are its leadership challenges. Our mission with the IFDA Podcast is to help you stay ahead of the curve with fresh leadership insights and strategies. And I am pumped today. I'm going to use the word pump, because today's conversation is with, I think, potentially the most interesting man in the food business, Ron Dunford. So welcome to Crave, Ron.
Thank you. Great to be here. Yeah, I don't know about the most interesting man part, but it's great to be here.
As we unpack these stories, if anything, maybe not in the world, but definitely very, very interesting. How about that, Ron? So we'll go there. But okay, fair enough. But Ron, tell me a little bit about yourself. I always love, I could sit here and read your bio, and obviously super impressive, 43 years, CEO, on the board, Schreiber. Tell me a little bit about Ron Dunford.
There's always multiple stories, right? You can tell the story about your title or your position, which I think doesn't do justice to anybody, right? I mean, because that's just one part of who you are. You can tell your story from a family perspective. You can tell your story from all the things that you've done, the things that you love. At the end of the day, I always tell people at Schreiber Foods, get to know the full package, get to know everybody's story, because then it comes to life, right? So what are the stories? Yeah, I mean, I'm the CEO of Schreiber Foods, which I love Schreiber Foods and I love the industry. I'm a father of two, grandfather of 5. I love that part of my life. I'm an adventure seeker. I love to hike. I love to ski. I love to do everything adventure and try to push the limits as much as I can. I'm a community guy. I love to be out in the community and serve and get to know people. And so I love life. Get to know me is to love life. I would say I like to do a lot of things.
And Ron, for my friends that are going to be listening to this in the car, I'd love to describe what they're looking at. Is they're looking at someone that's eyes that are still completely lit up, because I can tell that even though you've been on this journey, you're still figuring things out, and also looking pretty fit. Is there an Ironman in the future here, or did you just recently do one? Or
so I've done 3 Ironman. I'm signed up to do one actually. I don't know whether I'm going to do that one or not. There's always choices that you have to make. I'm always like dreaming big, signing up for lots of different things, and then life takes you different ways. The next big event that I know for sure is Kilimanjaro. So I'm climbing Kilimanjaro next year. We've got that all set up to go. And there's always events going on in my life. So yeah.
Never a dull moment. If you want something done, right there you go.
I try to stay young and fit. I use a phrase sometimes. My goal is to die young, as old as I possibly can. Which means I want to be a really fit 80-year-old, and I want to be a really fit 90-year-old. And so whenever my time's up, I want to die young in spirit, young in heart, young in, so as old as I can, but I want to be young at that point in time.
Well, you'll love this. As a tennis player, I always joke that my goal is to become the number 1 player in the world in the over 95 category. So I figure if I could just stay in the game, right, eventually the pool will shrink so small that I'll get there, Ron.
Say that about my Ironman adventures. If I can still do one at 75, maybe 80, I can qualify for Kona. It's the only way I'll ever qualify for the World Championships, be the last guy standing in my age group.
Well, listen, I think it's a nice bridge, and thank you for yes, you have a title, and obviously that's a big responsibility, and and you should be super proud of the impact you've had and your partners. And I want to unpack, I'm going to use the word partner choicefully there, and I'll come back to that. But maybe just a little bit about what are you learning as an adventurer that could serve you, or as an Ironman that served you as a leader? Because there's always parallel. We love to, whether it's the arts, the sports, I'd love to unpack that a little bit with you.
Let me talk about climbing mountains, as the parallel, because I use that all the time here at Schreiber Foods. I love to climb. I love to hike. I won't ramble too long about this, but I says maybe there's a good lesson here. When you're going to go hike a peak, you got to decide to hike first of all, right? And which peak you're going to hike. And that's not different at all from business. You got to decide sort of the where it is that you're going to go. So vision and direction, then you choose a route, right? Any peak has multiple routes. There's not just one single route to the top of any peak. As you get closer to the top, maybe it narrows down, but early on you have a lot of choices. And so strategic direction, which path are you going to take? That's kind of the what and the why, the how as you go. The third thing is I'll just call prep and capability, right? So you'll learn when you're going to do an Ironman, you'll learn if you're going to climb a peak that it takes an element of preparation and capability. And so there's mindset, there's heart set, there's skill set, and I'm going to say leader set. Right, all of those are part of a capability, right? So mindset is a belief, that you can do it. A heart set is a desire. Yeah, I want to do that. I'm committed. I'm willing to do that. A skill set isn't I know how to do it necessarily, but it's a willingness to learn and be curious and all that thing. And then a leader set is the ability to be able to set a vision and work with people and all the things that you get the team going. So that's sort of a step 3 when you make a climb. Step 4 is you go, right? You take the first step. Yeah, you climb the peak. Step 5 is an interesting one. One that I'll just say you pick up trash along the way, right? I learned this from my son, right? We go on climbs, and along the trail, sometimes people leave stuff behind, and he always believes in good karma, right? Dad, if we pick up the trash that someone else left, that gives us good karma. And so doing good, right? Whatever business that you happen to be in, I think there's an element, a responsibility that we have to do good along the way. And so it's not just about reaching the peak. It's what did you do in the process of getting there? Did you do something good on the way? So pick up trash along the way. The next step is you've got to learn to lead through adversity, right? Lead through challenge, lead through, whether it's an Ironman, whether it's climbing a peak, at some point in time, things aren't going to go your way. They're not going to go as planned. So what do you do when things don't go as planned? What pivots do you need to make along the path? And then last thing is just, execution, getting to the top, getting it done, and then choosing the next. I never believe in sort of you get somewhere and then you rest. You get somewhere and then you choose next and you start all over again, right? And you learn it's a continual process. So there's a lot that I've learned from adventures, but just and a lot of corollary to the what happens in business and in life. So yeah, dream big, expect success, take action, go for it.
You do realize that you just delivered your mini TED Talk there. That 4-minute segment is so going viral. Hey, but one thing so having not climbed mountains, but very fascinated by it, and I think it's something I'd like to do down the road. I also hear that it's quite dangerous coming down. So it seems like all the movies or the books is they do everything you've done, then they get to the peak, and it's actually they die or they get seriously injured coming down, Mount Everest.
Mount Everest specifically. Right? They use all of their energy, all of their capacity, all of their oxygen, everything on the way up. And then it's on the way down that the exhaustion sets in and they can't go anymore, quite honestly. The reality of it is there's a time to say stop. And most people who die on the way down should have stopped on the way up. Right? They push themselves farther than they should have. And, you get 300 yards from the top. And, by the way, I've never climbed Mount Everest. So I'm just speaking from all of the, what I've read and heard and the people that I've talked to, but it's know when to say when. And, I'm a big dreamer. And I don't believe that you should ever be able to set a dream and go out and accomplish it on the very first attempt. If you do, it wasn't a big enough dream. right? And so it's okay to be able to get close but not make it. Just come back again, right? Be better prepared next time. Learn the lessons. So I think most of the tragedy coming down is because people didn't manage the up well enough. I think most of the downfall of businesses, when businesses fell, they didn't manage the up very well. And so therefore, there's a big crash afterwards. So if you do the right things when you're growing, when things are scaling, then you got a chance. But if you don't, yeah, you're going to have a down, and it's not going to be pretty.
So interesting. I was working with a sales team recently, and it was on the retail side of things. And we talked about getting to yes a lot of times is actually quite easy if you understand the levers. But can you stay there? And can you sustain it? Because sometimes you got to yes, and to your point, you burned a lot of social capital or a lot of relationships when your product wasn't ready, or you didn't have your strategy right, or whatever that thing might be. So I love the analogy.
Exactly.
Okay, so now I've got a visual. I imagine you talking to your 10,000 partners. So imagine we're at a big, I don't know, we're in Africa, there's one big campfire. So partners, I'd love to understand the origin of why do you call your team members partners, and what do you think that changes in the behavior, in the culture?
And I mean, simple little things, but words matter. And we've been calling ourselves partners for as long as I've been around. So I'm not sure what the actual first time was when we started calling each other partners. I always have to sort of explain when I say that word, I'm talking about our employees. But we really try to look at it that way. Partnership is one of our 5 core values, because we believe that whether we're talking about our suppliers, whether we're talking about our customers, whether we're talking about ourselves, our employees, or our partners, that's the relationship that makes all the difference in the world. If it's just a transactional relationship, then all you'll ever get is transactions. If you want meaningful relationship and long-term success, and we measure our relationships in decades, not years. One of our largest customers in the world, we just celebrated their 10th year. And I remember 10 years ago, I said, look, this is great that we've been with you for a year, but when we get to 10, then I'll think we're starting to do something right. And not that long ago, we were having a conversation. I said, welcome to the first decade. We made it.
Wow.
Now many decades to come, right?
Yeah.
So partnership is about decades, not years or weeks of relationship.
Well, I can tell you, engaging with your team members, whether it's at conferences or even in your office or various events, I look at the tenure and the pride, and they do talk like owners. Like the words come out, and words matter. I'm with you 100%. And so it's interesting. And now when you hire, I'm assuming, because when you have a culture, the hardest thing is to integrate newer team members or people that have had a lot of experience coming from other cultures where they might not have been partners, but they might have been really good at what they do. What's your thoughts around integrating someone and becoming a partner versus someone that, all they know is being a partner at Schreiber, for instance?
Yeah. So again, great question. Here's what I would say about that. First of all, I don't think that we have all of the answers on the best culture or the best company, right? We're always striving to improve. And so when we hire someone, the first thing isn't to say, hey, we have to Schreiberize you. You have to, all fit into our culture. I want them to bring who they are. And I want them to bring the best of what they've learned and the best of what they've been exposed to and teach us. And so part of our culture is we want to learn and we want to listen. So yes, we want you to come in and assimilate and be part of who we are, but we also want you to come in and teach us if you think there are things that we can do better. So if you look at it from that perspective, then I think it makes it easier for someone to come in and feel comfortable, easier for someone to come in and provide input and advice. So yeah, I mean, culture at the end of the day, and you know this well, it's not the words that you have written on the wall, right? So do you write the words and then you act them out, or do you act it out and then you write the words? The reality of it is culture isn't what you write. Culture is what you act. Culture is what you do when the leader's not around, right? Culture is what determines the decisions you make. Culture tells you what you focus on. Culture sort of tells you how you interact with people, how you treat people, how you think about quality, how you think about it. That's all part of culture. And so you don't even have to have words written on a wall if that's how you act. So culture, the how you act sort of determine. In fact, I'm rambling here, but I tell people all the time when I go to our plants, right? We have the words on the wall. What I'm validating every time I go out and visit one of our sites is, do what we say on the wall match what we act like on the floor? And if it doesn't, then tear the stuff down from the wall. I don't want to say we do something and not do it. So I would rather not say it than to be, phony about who we think we are and say we are. So yeah, culture is combination of sort of all those things.
And are there things you do as a leader? So, for instance, as I was getting ready for this, I went down the rabbit hole of YouTube because we all have a social footprint. And I saw this great talk that you delivered for students as part of a seed program. Was it at Utah State, I believe, maybe, or Utah State? Yep. And we both admire and share respect for Mr. Roger Federer. And I love that you showed the famous clip. And for our listeners, if you haven't seen it, it's worth going down and listening to his address that he did, commencement speech for Dartmouth University. But there's a clip that Ron shared where Federer talks about how he's one of the greatest players ever. He's won 80% of all the matches he's ever played, but only 54% of the points played. That means, in theory, you got to get really good at bouncing back, learning from the fact that the point's over, get to the new one. Are there principles? So you have your values, you have your culture, but is there principles that you would share with your team? If I were to interview your team member, they would say, oh yeah, Ron would remind us, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Or if we don't get the result, as long as we do something with it. Are there a couple of nuggets that you could share with us that guide your leadership philosophy or leadership principles?
Federer, I think one of the classic lessons he taught was when you lose, that's sort of normal and natural, and you're not going to win every point, but when it's over, right? And don't dwell on it, right? You move on to next and you figure out what's next, and then you go forward and you try again. And I think that was sort of a classic lesson that he taught. What are my personal success principles? I mean, there's 5 of them. It's dream big, expect success, take action, do good, and have fun. And I think if you were to ask anybody in the company, what are Ron's success principles, you would be able to sort of say those things. And quite honestly, heck, I could do a podcast on 5 podcasts. I could do one for each one of those and talk about those principles, because I think they're so critical to personal success, but business success and team success. I mean, it starts with a dream and a passion for something bigger. And I'm such a mindset guy. The power of the mind is amazing, right? And activating, I think, vision and belief activate the brain and the reticular activating system, and those things that make you notice how to do things differently. Taking action. So many people have this sort of idea of what I want to do and where I want to go, but they fail to take the first step, right? So how do you take the first step? The doing good, that's kind of the picking up the trash thing that I talked about earlier.
I love that example.
At the end of it, have fun. I mean, I believe in having fun. It's not the destination that matters. It's the journey that matters. And how can we learn on the journey? It's okay not to succeed every time. You ask, what's a principle? What's something that I teach? A couple things. One, it's okay to not win every time, right? I want to dream big enough that it takes us a while to get to the top, and we have to learn the lesson, and we have to get messy and dirty and do hard things, right? If you can't learn to do hard things, you'll never progress, right? I think so often we're looking for the easy way out. Right? What's the easiest way to get there? And I tell people, quit looking for easy, quit waiting for easy. Life's never going to get easier. If you're looking for easy, you're going to look for a long time. If you wait for easy, you'll wait forever. So just learn how to do hard better, right? The higher you get on a mountain, the tougher it gets. But the more you accomplish, the easier it appears. So you're doing hard things better and easier than you could have ever imagined 3 weeks ago or a year ago. So just do hard better, and I think is a great principle. One of the other things I say a lot is, you can't lower the peak. You choose to climb a peak, you can't lower it, so you have to elevate yourself, right? Quit worrying about lowering the peak. just worry about elevating yourself. So do something every day to elevate yourself a little bit. And if you do, we'll get to the top.
I was part of a kind of a venture capitalist group, a bunch of entrepreneurs that love other entrepreneurs. So we're trying to help entrepreneurs at early stages. And one of the kids, I was going to say kid, because I guess I'm 51, he was like 22. I love what he said. He said, this is hard, but that's also going to be our moat, because it's so hard that people are going to give up. And we are dreaming big, to your point. And we believe we've got the technology. And honestly, guys, don't view the hard as a bad thing here. It's almost like that's, and I thought, wow, first of all, great wisdom at 22, right?
What I tell everybody is, I encourage everybody to do something really hard every single year. Every year you have to do something hard, right? Public speak if that scares you to death. Figure out where you can go public speaking. Climb a peak. Do a 5K. I don't care. Whatever you think is hard, do that. If for no other reason than to prove to yourself that you can do hard things, right? Because life is going to throw you curveballs, and hard things are going to come your way. And when they do, you can look back and say, well, it's okay. I know how to do hard things. I accomplished this last year. I did this the year before. So get in the habit of doing hard things so that when life gives you something unexpectedly hard, you can say to yourself, it's okay. I got this. I can do hard things. So I think there's value in just that belief.
I'm going to share a quick personal story because I think it'll connect given our passion that we have for doing hard things. So every 5 years, I've done a marathon since the age of 25. And last year at 50, I said, I'm qualifying for Boston. That's it. Like, I'm burning the bridge. I'm doing it. And, it didn't happen. As a matter of fact, I had to stop at the 23K. So I'm talking like in Canadian here. Yet that journey, that 18 weeks to this day was probably the best 18 weeks of my life in terms of focus, energy. And you know what? I just caught, it was in Florida. It was a hot day. I pushed a bit too hard. They had changed the 5 minutes. I had to be faster within my training because there was too many people qualifying. Look, sounds like a bunch of excuses, but the point was I didn't do it, yet it's one of my proudest accomplishments. And I can't wait till I'm 55 to go back at it from those lessons learned, Yeah, it's funny how that works, huh? I need to react to the trash analogy because I'm sure you've read the book. You're familiar with the New Zealand All Black team. I think they're literally the most winningest professional franchise in all sports. I don't know if you ever read one of the books where they call the concept sweeping the shed, which I think you would appreciate. So the notion is this: when you represent the All Blacks, so you're playing for your country, it doesn't matter if you're the superstar on the team. No one is bigger than the team. So after the game, imagine this, 80,000 people, you're literally rock stars. What do the players do? They have to go clean the stadium. It's out of respect for the team, the privilege to play, and for the people that came and paid to cheer. That is pretty amazing when you sweep your own shed. No one sweeps your shed was the idea from it, right?
I get asked about organizational structure from time to time. So what you said just sort of, reminded me of this. What I always say is I wish we could have a structure. We have 10,500 people at Schreiber Foods. I'd love to have an organizational structure that was just one line, 10,500 people all the way across, right? Because no one role, no one person in our organization is any better than anybody else. And so I hate to put people in these sort of layers and levels. We have to have structure because it allows us to accomplish things. It allows us to do all of the things that we want to do. That's the purpose of structure. It's not to signal to anybody that someone's more important than anybody else. It's not to signal anything like that. It's just simply it's an enabler to get stuff done. But I'm very much one who thinks, I'm one of 10,500, just like anybody else. And we all have our role, and our roles are different. But know your role, serve other people, and you can do big things.
It's amazing what happens when servant leadership is in action. What? Okay, so because the goal here, and I love, so let's dream big here. So one of your jobs as a leader is obviously to make sure that your company's always innovating and future-proofing itself. And you have a lot of people that depend on you because in a weird way, the role that Schreiber plays a lot of times, especially with private labels, it's almost like you're the unsung hero, right? Your team is propelling big brands for them to go and do well at retail or whatever it might be, food service, QSR.
Your success is our success. And if you look at what our our culture is, there's sort of three components of our culture. So passionate partners, brilliant at the basics, and customer obsessed. And the three of those things play perfectly well together, right? We want to, so passionate partners is about being all in the game, right? Not in the stands cheering on, but all in the game. Brilliant at the basics is understanding the basic principles of the business, the blocking and tackling, if you will, and getting that down right. And being customer obsessed is really truly exactly what it says. It's being obsessed about their brand as much as they are. If you do those things, if you've got people who are willing to be in the game, if you've got people really willing to understand the basics of the business and being brilliant at those basics, and then doing things in the interest of your customer brand because it's really our brand, then the culture sort of just happens, right? Culture, again, it's one of those things that it's not what you write about, it's what you do.
Yeah, and I love the thought around execution. I think it was the former chief marketing officer at Disney, Duncan Wardle. Yes, it was Duncan Wardle. And I love his description recently of what he believed innovation was. He said, innovation is not just the idea, it's executing against that idea. Because there's a lot of people that have ideas, but that's not innovative. That's just creative. That's just coming up. So innovation truly, and sometimes innovation is just 1% better because that's innovative. It doesn't need to be. I think sometimes when we say innovation, we think we're changing the world, and so.
But one of the lessons that I learned most was this sort of notion of input, output, outcome, and impact. And in the nonprofit world, simple is to understand it, because an input is, if I'm a nonprofit and you're a donor, it's my time and your money. With my time and your money, that's an input. The output might be that we built a school in rural Ghana, northern Ghana village, right? So there's an input, there's an output. The outcome is that now kids in that village get to go to school. Most people sort of stop right there. That's the outcome that we wanted. We wanted to build a school. We've got the school built, done. Impact is what gets measured 5 years from now and 10 years from now. Impact is, because of that school, we've got kids that are graduating and they're now going to college. 5 years later, now it's 10 years from now, one of those kids is a doctor. One of those kids is a professor. One of those kids is something else, right? So I believe in the sort of notion of what's the impact, not just in the nonprofit world, but as a company, what impact are we trying to make with our customers 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I can do outcomes. Outcome is we produced cheese and we got it on the truck and it got delivered on time. That's an outcome. The impact is a partnership 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The impact is we're making a difference 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so when I talk about starting with the end in mind, I always sort of go back to my nonprofit sort of little experience where you're thinking about the future and not just an outcome, but a real true 10 year from now difference.
And of course, this where also your foundation, your pedigree comes out, because that's very Stephen Covey, right? Stand in the future, think of the mind, in first, and then reverse engineer it. And I think that's where there's some opportunities in the food business. As someone that's very passionate about food service, retail, QSR, is sometimes I think we make it transactional when it shouldn't be transactional. We all want that long-term, that impact, and yet we're so short-term driven, and a lot of your competitors, some of the people you're serving have quarterly pressures. Wall Street's looking for a certain performance. So guess what? Wall Street tends to value outcome, even though they want impact. They want to see impact in the shareholders report. But ultimately, it's people get bonused out sometimes on outcomes. And I think that's the healthy balance. And I love that it took you getting outside, let's call it our food bubble, to travel the world, to learn from some not-profit of what you can also bring back. Because we can learn, right? You mentioned climbing a mountain, you can bring those learnings back. Non-profit, you can bring it back, and vice versa.
The world is your library.
Yeah.
Right? Kobe Bryant, basketball player, always had the sort of the goal, I'm going to be the best basketball player in the world. I want to be the very best basketball player. And so at one point in time, he said, everything I did was to learn to be the best. And he repeated the word everything three times. Everything, everything, everything. And then he went on to say, and when that's your goal, then the world becomes your library. Everything just showed me that. And I tell people that at Schreiber Foods, right? Our leaders particularly, be a great leader. I need you to be the best leader, right? And if you want to be the best leader, the world will become you'll go out today and you'll see an example on the street of leadership. You'll see an example somewhere of compassion and of caring. So if you're looking for something to be, you'll find examples all over the place. So the world is the best library that's out there. You just have to notice, right? You just have to be aware of that.
And I'll tell you, it's amazing, and it's unfortunate, obviously, that Kobe passed at such a young age, but the gift that he's left the world now, there's almost all these traces or these fingerprints of what it took for him to become Kobe. And it was clear he would study a Michael Jordan. And guess what? If Michael Jordan was using Tim Grover to be his relentless coach and should, get one more workout a day, because he said, if I work out from 3:30 to 5 in the morning, that's one more than everybody else. Therefore, compounding will mean that no one can touch me. But I would encourage anybody that's listening to this, if you haven't gone down the call it Kobe Bryant rabbit hole of some learnings, there's some great 2-minute sound bites on Insta, and because he did some really good interviews. And maybe a fun fact around Kobe that a lot of people might not know is he actually won an Oscar pretty much just before he died. I don't know if you knew this, Ron, but because he wanted to be, he got into Hollywood. He said, if I'm going to be in Hollywood, I want to be the best. So guess what? He gets into animation and wins an Oscar. Like, how crazy is that? We're going to have to talk about it for a few minutes, because if not, we wouldn't be doing service to the moment in time. Now, I'll just start by sharing my belief that I believe that EI, emotional intelligence, personal, is going to be rewarded more than ever for people that choose to really invest in it. And there is a thing called AI. There are robotics, automation. There is a technology stack that's kind of in front of us that is going to change the game. It's going to change, for instance, the food business in many ways. We're already seeing it. How we solve problems, how we prepare for meetings, how we follow up. I'd love to get your thoughts, because you've seen the evolution as someone that's been in the business for a while, right? Yep. What do you see at this moment in time? What's the opportunity? And we don't need to dwell too much on the negative and challenges, because we know there's going to be some. But what are the opportunities that sit in front of us as someone that loves our industry, that sees this technology stack that's sitting right there, that I'm sure you're having conversations every day with your team on? So, for sure. Yeah.
Well, let me just start by saying AI is arguably the most impactful thing that's happened in a generation and a lifetime, such that if you don't recognize that and don't leverage that, then you're going to get way behind. That's just my personal bias and belief. And I don't mean use it, I mean leverage it. Because everybody's going to use it. You're going to have to. The world is just that we use AI, and our phones are full. There's just everything that we do is AI. But really leveraging that is what's going to make the difference between those who survive and win and those who don't, right? Whether it's for us as an example, how we look at label designs, whether it's how we look at certificates of analysis, COAs that come in from suppliers, whether it's how we look at data in the plants, how we collect, how we analyze. There's all of those things are hugely impacted by AI, and the more we can leverage those, the better. I tell partners all the time at Schreiber Foods, don't fear for your job because you think AI is going to replace you, because I don't believe that it will. Fear for your job if you don't embrace it. You won't be replaced by AI. You may be replaced by someone who leverages AI. So be that person, right? Don't be the person who is leveraging AI, because we need you and we want you.
Because I love asking people, how are you using AI? And the other day, I love what someone shared with me. They said, I literally use 3 different ones because I want to make sure that it doesn't start drinking my own Kool-Aid and tell me what I want to hear. And then I'm almost competing coaches and mentors against each other. Yeah. And I love what you said. I only want real sources. The good news, it responds well if you know how to prompt it. And I'll tell you, I'll share an example. I think our listeners will love this. So obviously, I'm not a professional podcaster. I'm just someone that loves having conversations. I love our industry. I love IFDA. And when I was given the opportunity, I said, I would love to talk to people like Ron. Like, why would I not want to do that? So this morning, as a last minute, I literally went in ChatGPT. I said, hey, here's my construct. I'm having a conversation. I put your LinkedIn profile. I put a YouTube you had done. I said, if I was Simon Sinek collaborating with Adam Grant or Brene Brown, so these are people that I love in terms of have voices, what questions would they ask Ron? And you know what's the question it came up with that I think is a great bridge because I thought it was great. Ask him about what he has on his shoes. No, but how good is that? I think if you explain what you have, the two words that you have on your shoes and why you chose that, I was like, whoa, now you can get to a level of conversation that Ron's probably like, how does Julien know that? You know what I mean? Like, right. So now you got to tell the listeners, what do you have on your shoes?
I think you're referring to Plus Ultra.
Exactly. When you're training. So tell us what that means and why is that on your shoes?
So Plus Ultra, I have to give you the backstory of what that is. So in the Spanish flag are the words Plus Ultra.
Yes.
And the genesis of that goes back like to the 1600s, and goes back into even farther than that, Greek mythology. Hercules was going to an island sort of west of Spain, and he gets to what's now the Strait of Gibraltar, and there was a mountain, and he didn't want to climb over the mountain, so he pounded his fist on the mountain and created these two pillars that are known as the Pillars of Hercules, right? And so when you go down there, there's actually two sort of divides today, and that the story is that was Hercules who sort of smashed that divide in there that created the Strait of Gibraltar. Well, inscribed there on a rock is the words non plus ultra. Non plus ultra means nothing further beyond. And so it was a warning to people that beyond here lays great danger. In fact, early map makers used to write that on maps. They would chart out what they knew, but there's a certain point where they would say, grave danger lies beyond this point. Like early maps have actually said that because there was just unknown. Well, that was kind of the thing. So I don't even remember which king it was now, but one of the kings of Spain at one point in time said, we want Spaniards to be a nation of adventure and exploration. And so I'm going to change that. Instead of non plus ultra, I'm going to use the word just plus ultra. I'm going to put it on our flag, and we're going to have the spirit of exploration, the spirit of adventure. And so plus ultra, the meaning is further beyond, right? So why is it on the shoes? And actually a group has that. It was our president of the U.S. business, Jason Stevens is his name, that actually gave everybody some Converse to say plus ultra on the shoes, but it's to remind us to go further beyond, right? To have the spirit of innovation and exploration and going to the next level. So that's why but I'm a symbols guy. I have a in my pocket.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Of course you do. I have a domino, right? That represents the book, The One Thing, and dominoes, and how this one little domino, if I increase it by 1.5 times, the 57th domino would be as tall as from here to the moon. Just the geometric progression of dominoes. And I actually did this experiment on stage one time where I took this little domino and had a series of dominoes. The last one was like 6 inches wide and 6 feet tall. And this little domino knocked over that big, huge with a boom, right? It's a reminder to me that the things that we do, what's the one little thing? This one little thing can have this huge impact. It might take me 57 steps to get to the moon, but I got to start with this. So I've carried this little 1-inch domino that probably wouldn't stand up now because the edges are rounded from sitting in my pocket for so long, but for the last 4 years. So symbols, words on shoes, a domino in my pocket, a little band that says growth and impact on my wrist.
Of course.
So I'm maybe one of my little quirks. I don't know.
Well, Ron, is so funny. I'm going to make you blush here, but one of your partners, Aaron, said, Julien, you're going to have a man crush on Ron, and you're going to want to just follow him around for a whole week from like 4 a.m. to like midnight just to get into that man's brain. So how much would I have to pay for that? Can I just follow you for a week? Because I'm all in. All right, there you go. See? Hey, but I got to finish your story because this will blow you away. So 2 weeks ago, guess where I was? I was in Tangier, Morocco, in Hercules' cave. So I was So I was pumping AI with all kinds of information around, the great, the explorers. And obviously we went to Gibraltar as well. So when it picked up kind of your story, my story, that's why it said you'll be able to create an emotional, personal connection, because I was just there 2 weeks ago. Right. Whoa. Like I never thought it through until I was listening to you. I was like, of course it said pick that story because it's your story as well. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Yeah. So, okay, listen, I could talk to you all day, but the one thing I want to finish here, this segment is, and I've been doing this with all the leaders, because I think the gift of this podcast and what IFDA really wanted to kind of get out of this for the members is kind of leadership lessons, advice. Are there some books? Are there some things you recommend? We have young listeners that are literally early in your career, and we have people that are like you and I that are just like, we're just curious, like bring it on. That's why they're investing an hour of their time, whether it's in a car ride or at home.
So first of all, just be curious, right? Be a learner, be curious, and be you. Don't try to be anybody else. Just be a great you. And so advice that I give everybody all the time here at Schreiber Foods, maybe a few parts. Number one, work on yourself every single day. I don't care if it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the sort of 4 aspects of life. Do something every day to be 1% better in any one of those things. It's the compounding effect. We all understand it in finances, right? We understand it with dominoes, the compounding effect, right? But you don't think about it in your daily life, right? If I just do one little thing better, that day, that may not have done anything, like nothing. But if you do 1% every single day over time, it becomes hugely, hugely meaningful and impactful. So do something every day to improve. In terms of what podcasts or what books, I'm going to say it doesn't matter, right? Choose one that's right for you. I have a lot of books. I put books out there that I think are important to me, that matter to me. Find out the ones that impact you. My top 10 books probably wouldn't be anybody else's top 10 books. But just experiment, read different kinds of books, different leadership, different authors. I've got some old school authors like, Zig Ziglar and Stephen Covey and Tom Peters. And then, there's newer ones, like Simon Sinek and, John Gordon and newer ones. Right. So experiment and find out. Podcasts. Gosh, here's a way to use AI. I listen to 25 different podcasts. Well, I can't listen to 25 podcasts a week, but what I can do is I can ask AI, hey, group these 5 podcasts together. Give me the top content of these 5, and then tell me if there's any one of them you think I should listen to. And I'll get great information from each of those podcasts. And they'll say, well, if you're going to pick one, I would choose this one. Right. So use AI in that way to sort of filter through all of the information, but do something every single day. Every 90 days, form a new habit. Try something different. Right. Not 10 new things, just one new thing. Get up 5 minutes earlier, read 5 minutes longer, meditate. It doesn't matter. And maybe that forms a habit. Maybe it doesn't. It doesn't matter. But every 90 days, just try something different and something new. Every 6 months, create experiences and moments for those that you love most, right? Life is this there's a book called The Power of Moments, great book, and talks about how life is a series of mostly forgettable events, but there's these highs and these lows. You don't create lows, they happen automatically, but you have to create the highs. And so what advice would I give? Be intentional about creating highs, right? I give everybody a peak day every year off, right? Take a day, but with that day, I want you to go do something big, right? Create a moment, create a memory, and then send me a picture of it, right? If
I love that.
And then once a year, do something hard. Just again, we talked about it earlier, but do something hard to prove to yourself that you can. So what's my advice? Do something to improve every day. Try a new habit every 90 days. Every 6 months, create some experience or moment with those that you love most. And every year, do one thing hard.
And I must say, I'm going to give you a plug here. So you might get all these new followers on LinkedIn. But Ron has put out, I think, one of my favorite series this year where you have shared your favorite books and what your learnings were. And I'll tell you, it's been interesting, obviously, to get your insights, but it's been interesting to look at the comments and how people are saying, yeah, that book changed everything for me. Or for instance, I've bought 4 books as a result of the books you've recommended. And, they're on my list of the 20 that I need to read because I just buy books all the time. So I think I geek out with just having the stash, but now I got to read them. So look, I think following people that you like their mindset, that look, there's no perfect leader, but every leader brings something great to the table. And I love that commitment that you've done, Ron. It's amazing. What about the industry? So if you were to write a love letter, because this industry has been phenomenal for you, and maybe just quickly tell us, like, you've done a lot of different roles, starting from literally being in one of your facilities.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say I didn't start off my career to be in this industry, quite honestly. The food business, restaurant business, I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do earlier in life, I think, like most people do. But once you get in the industry and you understand what a great industry it is from both a people standpoint, from an impact standpoint, and it's an industry that will just be around forever because people are always going to need to eat, right? There's just something I think cool about the industry and what it is. Life is about experiences, and I think the restaurant industry is about experiences, right? When you go into a restaurant, sure, there's the food, but there's the social aspect of it and the cultural aspect of it and the experience that you get. And so I think the food industry just represents everything good about life, because it represents nutrition and it represents relationships, and it represents relationship building, and it represents fun, and it represents it's impacted my life and my family. And so I can't say enough good about and by the way, I think there's room for all types within the industry, right? If you want to go somewhere like super, super fast, you can do that. If you want to sit down for 5 hours, you can do that. It doesn't matter whether it's white tablecloth or it's fast. It's what's your experience going to be? What are you expecting, right? A culture is about getting an experience that you expected to get, right? Whenever it's interesting how often I'll leave a restaurant and people will talk about the food. Yeah, for sure. More than that, though, they'll talk about the server, the atmosphere, what I felt when I was there, the good time that we had. That's all culture, right? And if you have all of that stuff, the food will be great, right? Because they'll care about the food that they serve. And so that's everything about the industry and why I love it so much.
For my listeners that are listening to this in your car, I wish you could have seen, or you might have to go check it out on YouTube, Ron's body language and nonverbal, because you're a very passionate guy. You're very positive body language. And when I asked you that question, you actually leaned in. So I can tell that this industry, this business has meant so much to you. So here's where we finish. I'm going to try to do something that's probably impossible in a couple of minutes because you're a pretty multifaceted guy. But actually, I should say, I think you'll be able to do it because you're also very big on simplicity and communication, 5, 3, kind of 1. If you had a t-shirt, so right now you've got a collared shirt, but let's pretend it was a t-shirt, you're at the gym, you can only pick one word to describe who you're trying to be as a leader. And look, doesn't mean you're that person every day, but you would hope that, look, this is your ethos, or this is no different than the 2 words on your shoes. What word would you pick to describe your leadership style and who you're trying to be, Ron?
So I'm going to answer that, but I'll tell you a funny story first. 90% of the t-shirts that I have say "do good" on them, and I've got every color.
Oh, right, it's all the Schreiber t-shirt. That's good.
So it's not even the Schreiber ones. It just says "do good." That's it. And so my grandkids always sort of joke, it's not what's going to be on my t-shirt, it's what color it's going to be, because it's always a color. But that doesn't describe my leadership, to answer your question. If I was going to put one word that would describe my leadership style, that word would be elevating. Yeah. And so elevating as in, trying to lift people, trying to lift the organization, trying to lift results, trying to lift impact, trying to do good. So elevating would be my word that I would put on the t-shirt.
I love it. And, do good. I've got for your grandkids, maybe they could buy you t-shirts that are like bedazzled and because you're going to run out of colors. So we need tie-dye. We need to go. But I love that. And that really encapsulates who you are. And I love, because elevation can mean so many different things, right? You elevate when you're in a room, you make people feel good about themselves, you challenge them, you're thinking big, right? You started by saying, I dream big. So elevate, elevate, elevate. Well, listen, Ron, I mean, I cannot thank you enough. As our listeners will tell, I could have kept on going for hours here. So this could have been a Joe Rogan 3-hour long form podcast, but we'll keep it to an hour. And to our listeners, Ron, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you for investing time in yourself listening to Ron and I riffed off of leadership, because there's no 1 + 1 = 2 in leadership. It's everybody's gonna have their own formula, and I think you reminded that as well. We have to find our authentic voice. And any final words here? You get to close out the podcast. How about that?
Well, let me just close out with gratitude. Right. Thank you, Julien, for inviting me. Thanks to the listeners for tuning in. Yeah, I mean, what would I say? What was the final word? Go dream big, expect success, take action, do good, and have fun.
I love it. Well, thank you. And until next time, friends, go get them.